Hi, this is Morley and this is the M-Wire to give you another update on what's happening in Canada with the Freedom Convoy 2022 movement. That's right, folks. This is no longer considered a protest. We are way past that. But before I get into that, I'm going to show you what's happening on American soil in response to the Canadian movement right here on American soil. Take a look at this short clip right here. This is in Alaska, folks. Americans are starting to rise up just like our Canadian brethren to protest all the mandates that are happening all over the country. This is truly beautiful to see that in Alaska they have their own little trucker convoy going. Coming soon to a city near you. As I said in my previous update, there is a convoy being organized right now, and it's going to go from California all the way to Washington, D.C. What has been set in motion cannot be stopped by anyone. Which brings us to what's been going on in the capital of Canada, being Ottawa, Ontario. They have declared a state of emergency over the movement that is currently going on there. They are trying to prevent people from bringing the movementeers, if you will, gasoline and food. The Ottawa police are actually fining people who bring the truckers food and or diesel for their trucks, which is completely illegal. If I knock on your door and give you some food or some diesel, am I breaking a law? The guise in which they are trying to enforce this is aiding and abetting public mischief. This is a very clear indication as to how desperate they are to try and get this movement under control, which the Prime Minister of Canada has called quote-unquote a fringe movement. As you can see and surmise as of now, the last thing in this world that this is fringe. Now, there is an awful lot of news coming in regards to this movement. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. This past weekend in every major Canadian city, there was demonstration after demonstration literally in every major Canadian city, folks. This is no longer a protest, as I said earlier in this video. This is a full-blown movement against the mandates, and the truckers have taken a stand, a very strong stand in Canada against this. Now, just as here in the United States, the liberal media in Canada is basically painting the truckers to be some sort of racist, misogynistic, right-wing, far right-wing, if you will, group that are just a fringe minority and don't really represent what Canadians want. Well, I think the reality of this is very much different than the mainstream media is painting, because this has been going on for well over a week now, and it shows no sign of letting up despite the city of Ottawa declaring a state of emergency. Take a look at this picture, folks. This is a picture of a playground erected by the quote-unquote protesters. Yeah, those same racist, misogynistic protesters that the Canadian media is trying to depict that these people are. They have a playground for the children of the protesters. And of course, a protest in Canada wouldn't be complete without children playing hockey. How quaint. Now, I'm going to get into an article that talks about the state of emergency being declared and how the police in Ottawa are essentially trying to quell the protesters by cutting off their supplies. This is a very informative article. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but I'm going to go through enough of it so you get the idea how desperate the Canadian authorities are to get this very peaceful demonstration under control, because they realize that they are very, very much outnumbered. Trudeau is trying to intimidate us, nothing else. Demonized Canadian truckers deny they are ultra-white right-wing crazies and say hate crime charges are bogus attempts to force them to abandon Freedom Convoy protest. Canadian truckers blasted the government and Ottawa police Monday after members of their Freedom Convoy protest were arrested and charged with hate crimes. The protesters also strongly deny that they have ties to ultra-right-wing groups, insisting they are just ordinary truckers trying to make a living without being bound by the government's COVID vaccine mandates. Justin Trudeau and his government like to paint us as protesters as right-wing conspiracists associated with QAnon. But we aren't. We're far from it, trucker Guy Meester of Nova Scotia told the Daily Mail. Ottawa's Mayor Jim Watson declared a state of emergency Sunday to help deal with an unprecedented 11-day occupation by protesting truckers. The protest has shut down much of the core of the Canadian capital. Ottawa police arrested 7 people and opened 60 criminal investigations for hate crimes and mischief. They also seized fuel and supplies for 1,000 vehicles just hours after the mayor declared a state of emergency. Folks, this is a desperate cry for help from the authorities in Canada. They realize that the protesters have the leverage here, and the best they can do is charge people with trumped-up charges like mischief and confiscate their fuel, which I'm not exactly a Canadian constitutional lawyer, but I'm pretty sure they're not allowed to take things from them that rightfully belong to them. Angry truckers have lashed out at Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau after members of their convoy protest were arrested and charged with hate crimes during another weekend of unrest in the country's capital city. They have also strongly denied that they have ties to ultra-right-wing groups, insisting they are just ordinary truckers. It's intimidation, nothing else, Freedom Convoy protester Guy Meester told DailyMail.com on Monday. We are just a bunch of hard-working truck drivers who are out here protesting the government's COVID mandates. Folks, is it normal to go into a restaurant and prove that you've had a medical procedure done before you're allowed to sit there and eat your meal? Is it normal to be fired from your job because you haven't had a certain medical procedure done? Is that normal too? Well, these truckers in Canada are trying to assure that it doesn't become normal, because quite frankly, the last thing in the world it is normal. People who came out to support the protesters brought food, clothing, and other supplies. Families came with their children in tow, some with newborns in sub-zero temperatures to show their support. We have not seen any arguments with the few counter-protesters who were in attendance. Every trucker DailyMail.com spoke with said they came to protest non-violently, and their only reason being there was to free Canada of its COVID mandates. Truckers were conscientious of the public streets and kept them free of litter. They also shoveled snow and threw down de-icer, making the streets and sidewalks easier to walk on. Kids were welcomed by the truckers. On several occasions, they allowed them to clamber up in the cabs and blow their air horns. The truckers are protesting rules they say that any unvaccinated drivers have to quarantine for 2 weeks after crossing the U.S.-Canada border in either direction. Originally, both countries allowed an exemption for truckers to ease the supply chain crisis that has developed since COVID hit, but Canada ended that exemption on January 15th, and the United States followed suit a week later. The convoy, which organizers claim stretched up to 45 miles long, set out from Prince Rupert on the Pacific coast of British Columbia on January 22nd and arrived in the nation's capital last week. Since then, Canadian authorities have taken an increasingly hard line, arresting 7 people and opening 60 criminal investigations. They have also seized fuel and supplies for 1,000 vehicles Sunday, and Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson declared a state of emergency. But truckers continue to converge on the capital city, where they blocked streets, shot off fireworks, and blared horns in protest of the rules, which also cover drivers going the other way into the U.S. The situation is completely out of control, Mayor Watson said on Sunday. The individuals with the protest are calling the shots. They have far more people than we have police officers. But the truckers deny there is any extremist element to their protest. Justin Trudeau and his government like to paint us as protesters as right-wing conspiracists associated with QAnon, but we aren't. We are far from it, said Meester 56, who joined the convoy during his home in Aylesford, Nova Scotia. We aren't wackos, racists, or a group of people who vandalize stores and historical monuments or commit hate crimes as being portrayed by the media. Giving us truckers these labels is an attempt to coerce us to back off our protest, but we won't. We are just everyday Canadians who want to get back to work and earn a living so we can put food on our table and support our families. Meister said he has no plans to get vaccinated, at least not now, and would rather wait until more is known about the vaccine's long-term effects. We don't want to be out here protesting Trudeau's mandates. We would prefer to be back to work, he said. But we can't because of the government mandates. I don't have anything personally against him, but his mandates for the last 2 years have not worked. We need to open Canada back up so we can get back to work. Meister said he would like to even invite Trudeau to his home for lunch so he can see how the other half lives. I want to know if he personally knows any truck drivers or farmers, he said. Duell also accused authorities of trying to freeze the truckers out by seizing diesel fuel. We want to run our trucks to keep warm, he said. The government is involved in nothing more than lies and scare tactics, said Duell, adding that the seizing of fuel nothing more is a photo op for the general public by the government, which is working in conjunction with the Canadian media. 2 years of mandates haven't worked. It needs to end, and Canada needs to open up. Amen to that, brother. I mean, Johns Hopkins University just put out a study, actually, and they said that the lockdowns have prevented 0.2% of the deaths from COVID, 80% of which were 80 years old and older. Folks, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. People should have bodily autonomy over what medical procedures they do or do not have. It should not be mandated by any government in any country in the world. Now, before I end the video, folks, I just want to give a quick update on the Give, Send, Go Fund Me page for the Canadian truckers and the Freedom Convoy in Canada. They're at $5.5 million despite being deplatformed by GoFundMe. These truckers are absolutely a resilient bunch, folks. If you're able to donate, please donate, because like I say, and like I showed you at the beginning of the video, it's coming to America. I'm going to leave the link in the description box for the Give, Send, Go page for the Freedom Convoy 2022. Thank you so much for coming along with me to my update, folks. Please remember to like, to share this information, and of course to subscribe if you haven't already. And to the brave men and women in Canada and all over the world that have taken a stand against this, keep on trucking in the free world, and let's keep the world free. On that note, thank you so much again, folks, and God bless.